Now we're going to get started. Very good. Thanks for being here. Man, the first week of the time change is the worst, isn't it? Amen. Doesn't it feel like it's like 11 o'clock right now? It's been dark for the last... I know, it shouldn't be out this late. It's like been dark for the last hour and a half, but... Thanks for being here. Thanks for making the effort. Very encouraging to me to see y'all showing up for class, so thanks for that. Got a couple questions for you to consider, because you're entitled to my opinion. But actually, we're all entitled to each other's opinion. I'm going to do this pretty quickly, but I'm going to tie it into our class tonight. If you had unlimited resources to start your own business, what would it be? Someone. You could, Frank. Restaurant. Printing business. Interesting. Dave. Bookstore. Nice. Tyler. Games. Game studio. Okay. A gaming studio. Hardware store. Interesting. Yeah. Restaurant and bakery. Nice. I'll come to your bakery, Faye. I'll be the official taster. Yeah. Okay, very good. What is the most annoying thing that people do in public?
Speakerphone in public.
Speakerphone in public. You mean all us old people that go around doing this?
Yes.
Yeah. Put some AirPods in. Tyler.
People playing really, really, really loud music out of their cars. It's so loud.
Loud music. Loud music with the bass, the bass beating. Okay. Oh man, I love that. That's me. That's me in my old van. Haven't you ever heard me thumping down the road?
The kind of music that makes it the worst is probably not what you listen to.
You'd be surprised. No, you wouldn't be. Faye. Blowing your nose at the table in public. What else do you get up and leave? I know. Anybody else? Just something that just drives you crazy, you see people doing in public? Very good. See, we're all with a lot of grace here. Very good. Would you rather drive in a car or be the passenger? How many of you say, I would much rather drive if I'm in a car?
Depends on who I'm riding with.
Okay, well, okay. How many of you say, I would much, just let me ride. Just let me be a passenger. Okay, there's a few passengers. And then finally, you must move to a different state next month. What state are you moving to? You have to. Tyler. Colorado. Tennessee. North Carolina. Alaska. Arkansas. It's the state of confusion. Willie? No. Okay, very good. The reason I got us thinking that way is David is going to have, back in our study on David is going to have pretty much unlimited resources to start something new. As our story continues here coming up, it's going to be interesting to see what he uses those resources for and how he allocates those resources. There are going to be people who annoy David a great deal. It is going to be telling also how he responds, who they are first, why they annoy him, and how he responds. We're getting to a point in the story where David seems to take the wheel. It's been a while, but he's about to get in the driver's seat. Even in the driver's seat, he is still deferring to God as the navigator most of the time. And then David has moved around a lot. He's been on the run for a long time, but there's a place that he's going to settle. And there's a reason why he settles there, and we're going to see why that place is so appealing to him. But let's kind of get caught back up to speed real quick. Last week we were introduced to the players of the second chapter of Samuel, and they kind of stay the same players through the next couple chapters. Joab, David's nephew, is commander-in-chief. Abishai is the fierce warrior. Asahel is the one that we saw get killed last week by Abner, who was Saul's general. Abner's also Saul's first cousin, by the way. Ishbosheth is Saul's son, who is crowned king over Israel. He becomes the king over the tribes of Israel after Saul's death. David is crowned king in Hebron of the tribe of Judah. Ishbosheth is 40 years old when he becomes king. David is 30 years old when he is crowned king. Finally, not in Hebron, but the second time, which is actually the third time, anointed, crowned, and he'll rule for 40 years. So David's going to die when he is 70 years old. Okay. Chapter 3 opened with David, a list of David's sons that were born to him at this time. There's mentioned that there's some that we know quite a bit about, some we don't know anything about. And I think I ended last week by saying David's polygamy, I think, is one of his greatest sins. And it will follow him the rest of his life. So let's pick it up in chapter 3, 2 Samuel chapter 3. The war between the house of Saul and the house of David lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. You remember we talked about last week, I should have mentioned it just to remind you, that there's that weird scene where Joab and Abner and their men show up around in this one particular place, and Abner says, let's have a game and let's see how the men do against each other, and 12 of them hooked arms with 12 more, and they all killed each other, and then a battle ensues, and Abner is being chased by Asahel, and he keeps saying, don't do this, I don't want to have to kill you. Asahel doesn't quit pursuing him, and Abner ends up killing him. It's going to come back up in the story. Interesting, David refused to kill the Lord's anointed. Yet he does allow them to go to war against God's chosen people. David doesn't seem to stop this conflict that's going on. We're still kind of paying attention. Has David killed a Jew yet? Has David killed another Israelite yet? The answer remains not directly. He has yet to take another Jewish man's life. Now you kind of wonder, how else might David have handled this whole situation where it's the tribe of Judah against the northern tribes, the house of Saul? I'm not sure what the answer to that is. Verse 6 says, during the war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner had been strengthening his own position in the house of Saul. Abner has an eye on the throne. Abner is kind of the power behind the throne when it comes to Ishbosheth and his kingship. David, Israel's greatest warrior, does not personally march against the northern tribes in Abner. And I think his discretion went a long way when you start talking about unification later on. Okay, verse 7. Another person enters the story, and she is a very tragic figure. It is a woman by the name of Rizpah. I asked AI to give me a picture of Rizpah, and it's a woman sitting with a bunch of birds around her. Does anyone know why AI would put a bunch of birds around Rizpah? I would be so impressed if someone knows this. I would be blown away. You'll know it when you leave here, but okay, very good. I wouldn't have remembered it either if I hadn't just been stuck here. Now Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, and Ishbosheth said to Abner, why did you sleep with my father's concubine? Okay, there's a couple things at play here. Ishbosheth, the king of Israel, approaches Abner, his right-hand man, his general, his commander-in-chief, and said, why did you sleep with my concubine Rizpah? The question is, did he do it? That's right, I'm sorry, it's Saul's concubine, you're right. It was Saul's concubine. Why did you sleep with my father's concubine, Rizpah? And the first question is, did Abner do it? I think he probably did. If you want to disagree with me, that's okay. But for one, it was the exclusive right of the successor to the throne, kind of inherited the harem of the outgoing king. Abner is definitely the decision maker here in the northern tribes. However, Abner gets very upset when he is accused of this act. He sees it as kind of a moral and I think a strategic attack on him. Rizpah shows up again, by the way. That's where I'm going to remind you of, you probably knew it, but you just forgot what those birds are doing there. In chapter 21, several chapters later, there is a famine. God tells David, this famine is because Saul murdered the Gibeonites. And so David goes to the Gibeonites and say, what can I do to make this right? And they tell King David, we don't want money. We don't want restitution that way. And I think I mentioned this 6 months ago. What we want, you give us 7 sons of Saul so we can put them to death. And oddly enough, David does it. David turns over. First he says, I can't give you, descendants of Saul. He said, I can't give you Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son, because I've made a vow with Jonathan. So I cannot turn him over. But he does turn over 7 descendants of Saul. Verse 8 in chapter 21. But he gave them Saul's 2 sons, Aramoni and Mephibosheth, which is not the Mephibosheth that's Jonathan's son, whose mother was Rizpah, daughter of Aiah. This is the same Rizpah that proved to be the undoing of this alliance between Abner and Ishbosheth. So these 2 sons of Rizpah's, Saul's concubine, are given. He also gave them the 5 sons of Saul's daughter Merab, the wife of Adriel, son of Barzillai from Maloah. Anybody remember the details of Merab? It was Saul's oldest daughter. Who was Merab promised to? You remember? David. Whoever kills Goliath gets to marry Merab. David kills Goliath. But he says, I'm not worthy of marrying your oldest daughter. So he does not take Merab as his wife. Merab has children, though, and 5 of her sons are killed. The men of Gibeon executed them on the mountain before the Lord. So all 7 of them died together at the beginning of the barley harvest. Then Rizpah, the mother of 2 of the men, spread sackcloth on a rock and stayed there the entire harvest season. Anybody have any guess as to how long a barley harvest season was in ancient Israel? Probably not, so I'll tell you. 10 weeks. About 10 weeks. For 70 days and 70 nights, this woman sat with the bodies of her 2 sons. She prevented vultures from tearing at their bodies during the day and stopped wild animals from eating them at night. That's why the birds are there. AI knew that. That's right. That's why the birds show up. Why did God put that detail in this story? Why did God want us to know? This is a woman. She, again, she's the one you go back to. She's the one that was accused by Ishbosheth of having Abner sleep with her. She was Saul's concubine. She ends up mourning her 2 sons, and not just mourning them, but protecting them, their bodies. Why would God put that story in here? And is it important to us? Anybody have a thought? Mark.
She didn't have maybe the greatest past, but she took her job as a mother, no matter how she became a mother.
Okay.
She took that job very seriously.
Okay. I don't know what the answer is. That's a good one, by the way. But when I read it, and I'm on the same page as Mark is, when I read that, I think, okay, this isn't just a tall tale. This isn't just a story. These are real people with real emotions. Can you imagine, as a mother, You know, I can't imagine as a father, but you know, you mothers are so nurturing, and there's just that special connection between a mother and a child. Could you imagine being in her shoes? This is a woman with a story. This is a woman who's already had a very tragic life. And here she is doing all she can do to honor her sons.
Well, I was thinking if I was writing a holy book, I wouldn't have put that story in there, which is one of the reasons why I believe God wrote the book. You know, he puts all kind of gory, nasty details in there that if we were writing a holy book and trying to impress the world with something that we made up, we wouldn't put this stuff in there. But God put it all in there, and he didn't sugarcoat it or gloss over it. This was rough times and rough people, and God still used them.
Yeah, it's a good point. Certainly I think it makes David look bad. Made Saul look bad. Yeah.
I think it highlights how far those people who were tied with Saul have fallen now.
Okay.
Like, she went from living in the palace to now probably not even having a home, but like staying here and doing this. Like, everyone that was associated with Saul now is like, was praised for a while and now is a thing of the past.
Very good. Throughout this whole story, in fact, even tonight, there's going to be some really, I don't know about tragic. I think there's going to be a couple other women show up, and who just, it's a sad part of the story. We'll get there. Back to chapter 3. Abner was very angry because of what Ishbosheth said, and he answered, "Am I a dog's head on Judah's side? This very day I am loyal to the house of your father Saul and to his family and friends. I haven't handed you over to David." Again, who is in charge here? Abner's like, I could have handed you over to David. Abner is calling the shots. "Yet now you accuse me of an offense involving this woman. May God deal with Abner, be it ever so severely, if I do not do for David what the Lord promised him on oath, and transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and establish David's throne over Israel and Judah from Dan to Beersheba." Yeah, Abner is well aware that David is God's chosen one. Abner knows it. Abner's saying, listen, we all know it. God chose David, but I've been backing you, Ishbosheth. Verse 11, Ishbosheth did not dare to say another word to Abner because he was afraid of him. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to say to David, "Whose land is it? Make an agreement with me, and I will help you bring all Israel over to you." Abner's ready to switch sides. He's ready to not just come follow and pledge allegiance to David, but Abner's saying, I can bring everybody. I can make this whole thing happen. Let's get together on this. But there's a couple problems. Any problems with, well, I'll ask that question later. But I will tell you this, the biggest problem Abner has, who did he kill? Joab's little brother. He killed one of the sons of Zeruiah. And they have not forgotten. And they will not forgive. I said we're going to meet another woman in the story. We actually are going to be reintroduced to Michal. We all remember Michal, daughter of Saul, who was given to David in marriage. David married her. She actually helped David escape, but he leaves without her. He left her behind. This is a really interesting section here. "Good," said David. "I will make an agreement with you." David says, "Okay, I want to hear what you have to say. I think we can work this thing out. Let's combine, let's bring everybody together. I'll make an agreement with you, but I demand one thing of you. Do not come into my presence unless you bring Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come to see me." Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, demanding, "Give me my wife Michal, whom I betrothed myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins." Remember, Saul asked for 100. David gave him 200, actually. Why in the world would David want Michal back at this point? But if you read the beginning of chapter 3, he's got more wives and a whole lot more sons. He has no children with Michal. Why in the world at this point of the story would he want Michal back? Jeannie.
Maybe because she was Saul's daughter and maybe didn't want to have any more children for Saul. I mean,
Okay.
in the line.
Because he's Saul's daughter and...
If she got married to someone else.
Okay. Dave. Maybe he still loves her, Dave said. Okay. I don't know. There is something, she's his, and maybe that's it. There is something about, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, really. But it's going to get interesting, even more interesting. So Ishbosheth, verse 15. So Ishbosheth gave orders and had her taken away from her husband. She's remarried, Paltiel, son of Laish. Her husband, however, went with her, weeping behind her all the way to Barum. Then Abner said to him, "Go back home." So he went back. I got a question for the men. This is just for the men. What is your assessment of Paltiel, Michal's new husband here? He really loved her. Okay. Not the first answer I was expecting. Not too great. You know, my first opinion of this guy, man up. Come on. Against David. Yep. Against the giant slayer. Yes. If I really loved my wife, I know he's the king, but I'm not going to walk behind crying. I'm going to do something else. Easy to say here when I'm standing here as a preacher in a building, right? I know. As David is killing people for bringing them heads. Yeah.
I imagine Abner holding his sword when he said go back home.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not sure I would tell Abner.
You're going to go back home.
Under the old law, he never should have really been able to marry her anyway.
Okay. Under the old law, he shouldn't have been able to marry her anyway. Okay. Yeah. Irene.
Maybe she had money.
Okay. David's getting close to a place where he doesn't really need money. And he's getting close to a place where if he wants money, he'll go take it from somebody. Let me ask a question just for the women. How would you feel if you were Michal in this whole scenario now, knowing what you know about Michal? Mad? Why would you be mad?
Because he left.
He didn't take me with him. Okay, he left. What else? Is Michal, you get the impression that Michal is loved by this guy, Paltiel. Yeah. I mean, he's following her. He doesn't want her to go. He's weeping, which even in our culture, okay, that's not normal. But in that, that is normal. That didn't come out right. I absolutely... Real men cry. You're exactly right. Thank you. You're exactly right. But in that culture, to show that kind of emotion towards your wife, yeah. What else do you think Michal was feeling?
I don't know, but I'm going to ask a question. Was it lawful for her to remarry?
It should not have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
End of question.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're exactly right, Jeannie. They didn't really care. Yeah. How do you think Michal's feeling? Casma.
I feel that we are here thinking with Western minds. Back in that time, you just went along with the flow because that was the expectation. You were not valued as a woman. You were definitely a pawn in that whole game. Wherever they wanted you, that's where you went. So unless she had a very forward mind, she was just like, here we go again, and I accepted it.
Okay, and you're exactly right. The only thing that I would say, and only because we know what's coming next, the only thing I would say is we know that her and David aren't going to see eye to eye much longer. In fact, the next time she shows up, you know the story. David's bringing the ark back, and Michal says, well, aren't you distinguishing yourself, taking your shirt off in front of all these servant girls? And David tears into her, and, he says, she's kind of put away at that point. And to tell you the truth, I don't know what else David should have expected from Michal, because I think this is kind of a strange, bordering on low blow from David to say, okay, bring my wife back with me, because I don't think he loved her. I think Potel did love her. So that just seems like a strange piece of detail there that we see. Irene.
Couple things. I don't think that they knew the concept of running away. I'd have beat feet and get out of that town and go somewhere else and leave both of them behind.
Yeah, which it goes back to what Casma said. When that was a woman's place, especially when the king says, what are you going to do? But you're exactly right. Okira.
Yeah, to what Casma had pointed out during that time, and if you go back when Samuel told the people and when they were asking for the king, here's what's going to happen. The king will take your sons, he will take your daughters, and in a period. And this is kind of a reflection of that. When you look at this man crying, I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. And again, it's not to say David was a malicious man, but Solomon told them that this is what worldly kingship does to people. Hence, some of the mistakes that David made as a man. Here's one: I want her. Yeah, it doesn't matter if I loved her, if I left her. I want her. You come. Don't care about your feelings, woman, and I don't care about yours. Current husband. I'm the king.
Yeah. Samuel's prophecy is coming true for sure.
If you're gonna be king, you can't lose your wife to a guy who's crying.
If you're going to be king, you can't lose your wife to a guy who cries in public. Okay. I'll try to remember that. Okay, let's keep going. By the way, let me get caught up to this verse. Abner comes and does meet with David, and he wants to lend his support to the unification of Israel, that David's going to be king over all of Israel. David receives him. He actually gives him a lavish meal. He treats him well. They have this conversation. David sends him away in peace. As soon as Abner leaves, Joab and some men show back up, and they find out that Abner was here and David let him go. And Joab is incensed. How could you do this? How could you let Abner leave? Don't you know he's spying on you? He's just trying to figure out what you're about. You cannot trust this man. So, verse 26. Joab then left David after he found out that Abner was just here and David was nice to him and they're going to work on this thing. Joab then left David and sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David did not know it. David didn't know anything about what's going on. Now when Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside into the gateway as though to speak with him privately. And there, to avenge the blood of his brother Asahel, Joab stabbed him in the stomach, and he died. Joab murders Abner. Later, when David heard about this, he said, I and my kingdom are forever innocent before the Lord concerning the blood of Abner, son of Ner. May his blood fall upon the head of Joab and upon all his father's house. And listen to what David does. May Joab's house never be without someone who has a running sore or leprosy, or who leans on a crutch, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks food. Then parenthetically, verse 30, Joab and his brother Abishai murdered Abner because he had killed their brother Asahel in the battle of Gibeon. Apparently Abishai had a hand in this as well. So David says, may Joab's house never be without someone who has a running sore, or leprosy, or who leans on a crutch, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks food. Jewish culture put a tremendously high premium on a person's lineage, a person's descendants, much more so than our culture. In cursing Joab's house, I would think that it distressed Joab more than a direct punishment on himself. I mean, all of us who are parents know I would rather take the punishment than my children. I would rather suffer. I don't want my children to suffer. And for Joab, who is David's nephew, to hear, I'm cursing you. I want your descendants to have problems from here on out. It had to be hard. Joab is a really interesting character. He's a complicated guy. I don't think we have any of our lawyers here tonight, but I want you to be a lawyer tonight, and I want you to maybe give some reasons that Joab might have been justified in killing Abner. We know the reason that the Scripture says, revenge. Okay? Can you think of any other reasons that you say, okay, if I'm trying to defend Abner, or Joab, I mean, here's some other reasons why maybe he killed him. Doesn't trust Abner, okay? He loves David. Joab loves David, and he knows Abner can be a threat. In fact, he's convinced he is a threat. I can't trust this guy. I'm going to help David by taking out the competition. Great. You think of any other thing?
Keeping the kingdom separated.
Keep the kingdom separated, okay? Joab might be able to see some benefit to that. Dave? He could replace Joab. Okay. Either he's worried about Joab replacing him, Abner replacing him, or Joab wants to replace Abner. Either way, really. We're two guys that kind of, if this thing comes together, only one of us can be like the main right-hand man of the king. Okay. Yeah. Great. I thought too of maybe it's just old wounds from back in the day when Saul was pursuing David and Joab had sided with David, and so Saul's army keeps trying to track him down and kill him. I really don't like that guy. This would be a better place if he wasn't here. Later on, we're going to learn some more about this interesting personality of Joab as well as his approach to God. But speaking of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Well, when Jesus came along and taught us what the law really should have been fulfilled like, Jesus taught us mercy, forgiveness, long-suffering, self-control, all of those things that none of these guys are exhibiting right now. And I can't help but think how much better would it have been if some forgiveness and long-suffering and patience and self-control had been the order of the day instead of, I'm going to kill you because you killed my brother, and that sort of thing. And the other aspect of it is, look how God still built a kingdom out of this mess. He still used these people. He still accomplished his purpose to bring the Messiah and our Savior, 1,000 years later. I'm constantly amazed at the complexity of the world and the ability of God to navigate it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ron?
I was going to say, David's pretty consistent on, defending Saul's family in the sense that, like, for example, when Saul was killed himself actually, but someone came to David and said, hey, I killed him, trying to gain favor. Of course, David had him killed. So here's, possibly Joab trying to impress David, say, hey, I'm, taking out one of Saul's people, and, that didn't turn out too well.
Didn't turn out like he might have imagined. Yeah, good thought. Speaking of Abner, by the way, David had nothing to do with this, okay? David had nothing to do with Joab killing Abner. And he wants to make sure that everybody knows that he didn't have anything to do with it. Verse 38, then the king said to his men, do you not realize that a prince and a great man has fallen in Israel this day? Which I think is generous praise for Abner. And today, though I am the anointed king, I am weak, and these sons of Zeruiah are too strong for me. May the Lord repay the evildoer according to his evil deeds. David says, I got to deal with these nephews of mine. I got to deal with these sons of Zeruiah. And he's going to deal with the sons of Zeruiah the rest of his kingship, by the way. But it's interesting to me how differently David reacts to death in different circumstances. Again, he wants everyone to know, I had nothing to do with the death of Abner, which is going to go a long way in unification as well. But you think about how David reacted to the death of Saul and Jonathan. Think about how David reacts to the death of Abner. Think about how he will react to the death of Absalom. He grieves those deaths, just grieves those deaths. And then other times, death seems like just an afterthought to David. We'll just kill him. You bring me news that you killed Saul, it's going to cost you your life. And I don't know that I have a question. It's just, but Akira has the answer. It's just interesting how David, the different, and especially when you read the Psalms. When you read the Psalms, he just pours his heart out, and you think, wow, what an emotional, he's so in touch with his emotions. His emotions run so deep. And then other times he seems so callous to it all. Akira.
Don't have the answer.
Good.
But in regards to how David viewed authority, I don't think he wavered on that.
Okay.
Hence, when the man killed Saul, or how Saul ended up dying, and he said, I did it, how dare you, strike down the anointed.
Yeah.
Here, when Joab was killed, his authority was in question, and not just his authority, but the authority of God. I need to let people know that God does not operate like that.
Yeah.
So in the name of the authority that was given on me, I represent God. So, and God did not ordain this. I'm not that type of person in this instance. So in a sense, you can see him protecting the authority of kingship between just using Saul's death and his death. And like you said before, there are some other instances where it's just like,
Yeah, that's the answer. There you go. You did have the answer. Thank you. Very good. Yeah. Okay. Chapter 4 opens. Ishbosheth is king over the 11 tribes of Israel. David is king over the one tribe, Judah. For 7 years, this conflict goes on. 7 years, the kingdom is not unified. David's king down here, Ishbosheth's king up there, although Ishbosheth's only king for 2 years up there. People keep telling David, claim what's yours. Come on, God put you in this position. Take it by force. David continually refuses to do that. God's will, God's way, God's time. David's like, I am not going to raise my hand against the Lord's anointed. If Ishbosheth wants to be declared king by the people in the north, so be it. I'm going to let God deal with that. Finally, two brothers. These two brothers sneak into Ishbosheth's quarters while he is taking a nap, and they kill him. And they think they've done David a great favor by killing Ishbosheth, the king of the north. They think David is going to be pleased because, again, they've eliminated the competition. They cut off his head. They cut off Ishbosheth's head, and they take it to David. Verse 8, they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David at Hebron and said to the king, here's the head of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, your enemy, who tried to take your life. This day the Lord has avenged my lord, the king, against Saul and his offspring. They bring the head of Ishbosheth to David, which seems so barbaric to us. I mean, that's just barbaric. And yet when you think about it, how else are they going to prove they killed him? They don't have a smartphone. They can't take a picture. They could carry the body back, but you want to lug that? No. Yeah, David did the same thing. And that was kind of what you did. David did the same thing with Goliath. So they cut off the head of the king. They bring it to David, and they assume David's got to be pleased with us. We're going to be rewarded. And they were rewarded. Not quite as they expected. David answered Rechab and his brother Baanah, these two boys, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite. As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of all trouble, when a man told me Saul is dead and thought he was bringing me good news, I seized him and put him to death in Ziklag. You guys remember that? You remember what I did? That was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wicked men have killed an innocent man in his own house and on his own bed? I would argue that Ishbosheth wasn't all that innocent, but that's how David saw it. God's will, God's way, God's time. Should I not now demand his blood from your hand and rid the earth of you? So David gave an order to his men, and they killed him. Finally, and actually those two guys kind of did what David was waiting for. Finally, the southern Judah and northern Israel is going to be united as one. David has been living as a fugitive for 7 years, and then 8 more years running from the house of Saul. And the text says this: all the tribes of Israel, not just Judah, all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, we are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns, and the Lord said to you, you will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler. So all the people, these people that had been loyal to the house of Saul, these people that had been loyal to Ishbosheth, they all come together and say, David, it's always been you. We know it's always been you. You were always God's choice. You were always destined to be king. You know, we just couldn't quite figure out why you didn't take it by force. You had so many opportunities. You know. And he did have that many opportunities.
Maybe God was tired of waiting on David and had those two.
Maybe God was.
Because he sent him to the cave.
Maybe God's saying, if you won't do it, I'll find someone who will. But the time has come. When all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, and notice what David does. Okay, here comes all the elders of Israel, all these ones that he's been fighting against. He shows incredible maturity. He shows incredible humility as well. Think about this. They want to make David king. They're ready to make David king. David has all the cards. He's holding all the cards. David is the one who now is large and in charge. He's not just king of Judah. They're ready to make him king of all of Israel. His word is law. Everyone is looking to him. He is the most powerful man in the room. Notice what he does. The king made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David makes a covenant with the people who had been chasing him, who had been fighting him, who had been a thorn in his side. He made a promise to them. He didn't have to make a promise. Again, his word is law. So why in the world, after being mistreated all those years, remember he's facing this group of men, this group of elders who did not support him when, Ishbosheth took power while Ishbosheth was still alive. Why didn't he exact some revenge on those tribes? Why didn't he say, there's going to be a price to pay for your poor decisions these years that have gone by? Instead, he makes a covenant with them. And rather than get your opinion, I'll tell you, as we get ready to wrap up here, I'll tell you why. In fact, there's 3 words in the text that tell us why he does it. Kind of explain this whole thing. When all the elders of Israel came to King David at Hebron, the king made a compact with them at Hebron before the Lord. And they anointed David king over Israel. David is doing this before the Lord. He's declaring publicly, I am king, but I'm under the rule of God. I am in submission to the Lord. He submits himself to God's law. This is David once again saying, I am a king. I am not the king. If we're going to be united as a nation, as a people, God is going to be our ruler. God is going to be our king. With all the ups and downs, success, failure, David was never confused. Even later on here in his life, as he makes a few pretty bad mistakes, he's never confused about who the real king of Israel truly is. He's 30 years old when he becomes king. He reigns for 40 years. He waits 15 years for God to do what God promised he would do. 15 years. And it was not an easy 15 years. It was a very difficult 15 years. And I think it's during that time that he learned the lessons that made him the leader that he is. Chris?
Well, it's interesting if you do the math. He was 30, which is amazing that a 30-year-old has lived all of this stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
He had a busy life. But that means he started at 15.
Probably so.
When all of this started unfolding, so he's 30 years old, but he's been running and dealing with all of this since he was 15 years old. I don't know any 15-year-olds that could handle the stuff that
no
David.
wonder Jesse thought, don't worry about him. He can't be one. He can't be the one you're looking for.
He was a kid. But how many 15-year-olds do you know that can begin to handle the kind of load that he carried for that next 15 years?
And then you look at all the stuff he's going to cram into these 40 years.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing too.
Yeah,
I mean, it is like this guy lived a life. And then he dies at 70, and I'm a lot closer to 70 than I am 50 right now. When David dies, we'll get there, but you remember he is so frail, they have this, human hot water bottle, Abishag, in bed with him just to keep him warm. He's a really frail guy by the time he gets to 70. It's not the age, it was the mileage for David. I mean, he just lived a life. And we're going to stop right there for tonight. We'll pick up his amazing life next week as well. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the input. Good stuff. Let me close with a prayer, and we'll be dismissed. Father, I pray that if we take nothing else out of this story tonight, that we can pay attention to David when he focused the fact on you're in charge, that he serves you. And Father, I would pray that we would be more focused on serving you in every aspect of our lives. Thank you for this very true story. The things that are easy to understand, the things that are head scratchers. But thank you for sharing this with us and giving us an insight to human nature, but especially insight into who you are. And not just what you demand, but also what you offer and what you want to bless us with. So help us to take that to heart as we go through the week. Keep us safe as we're traveling. Be with people here at Bay Area that need you in special ways. And I pray in Jesus' name, amen.